Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. We have just finished July, and I'm really having a great time this year. I was looking at my reading goals for this year, and I am currently 80% through, which means that I've read 80 books this year. Um, and I am just kind of blown away by how much I've read. So I thought I would share some of my stats for July and um, then share my genre blanket. I'm not really going to talk too much about the actual books I read, since in all of my vlogs I have gone over those books. I might mention a few that I really enjoyed toward the end, though. All right, so for the month of July, I read 13 books, and that was over 5,000 pages, 5,103 pages for the month of July. I'm kind of surprised, although I shouldn't be at this point, that I read that much. Um, June ended up being a smaller month, but July is kind of typical for um, the summer months for me. Of those 13 books, 5 of them were fantasy, 1 was a mystery, 1 a thriller, 1 a contemporary, 3 historical, um, 1 was a horror, and I read 1 nonfiction. Of these, if you watched my July TBR video, you know that I was really trying to focus on getting caught up on my NetGalley um, arcs that I had, and I actually did really well with this. I ended up reading 8 books on my Kindle, with 5 additional books that I listened to via audio. Um, there were a few, like Ember Falls, that I both listened to and followed along in the text, um, just to give myself a little more in depth into it and keep myself going in the stories. One of my um, favorite books that I read um, is Tattooist of Auschwitz. This story had moments where it was just heartbreaking. This is by Heather Morris. Heather Morris did an amazing job of showing not only what life was like for the Jews who had been put into Auschwitz, but also some of their reasons why. Like, our main character um chose to go to Auschwitz. I mean, he didn't know he was going to Auschwitz, but he turned himself in to protect his family. And so we kind of get um these reasons why some would turn themselves in. Some we know from history were turned in by their neighbors or different things. In this one, we have this gentleman, and he is very fluent in several languages, and because of that, gets promoted um, in the concentration camp and is given the task of tattooing those who come in um, to Auschwitz with their number. And there we kind of see how he's disliked by some. Some feel he's a traitor to his people. Um, but you also have some instances where we see he blacks out a person's tattoo who was supposed to die. Um, and so to save his life, he covers his number tattoo with another tattoo and gets him out, shipped out with another group that weren't tattooed. Um, so it was a very interesting tale to see. And then we have um, seeing the kind of underground things. He was working with women whose job it was to go through the clothes, and they would give him money or the gems that they found, and um, he would from there put it um, and use it to buy medicine from workers who were able to leave Auschwitz. It's just a very, very interesting time. I have read several books now that kind of deal with this historical um, fiction aspect of Auschwitz and the time period. And it's just a very eye opening thing because I can't imagine living that kind of life and holding on to who I am to the point that I'm willing to go to death, or even being asked to. So that one was a really, really good one. Of my books, 7 of these titles that I read in July were adult, 4 were YA, and I did read 2 middle grade novels. Um, and I even was able to bring my NetGalley score up to, I believe it was 86%. Um, so I am above the recommended 80% mark for that, and hopefully I will keep it there. I have requested about 4 new books. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully I will. If I get accepted for them, I will keep up on my reading. And now, to update you on my genre blanket, I am at 80 rows. So this blanket, um, there's the bottom, and it keeps going. When I'm sitting, it goes from my head down, brushing my lap. And here you can see this is just July's books right here. So ending June, I had a romance, then fantasy, historical, nonfiction, thriller, or I'm sorry, mystery, thriller, contemporary horror. I almost said the color. Fantasy, historical fantasy again. I'm really enjoying making this blanket, and it's kind of fun to see the different phases. Like when we had here, this is the thriller horror readathon that I did at the end of February with the late night crew. Um, Again, here is Smut Den. Um, so it's just really neat to see some of these trends that happen throughout the year, and to have my reading this past month, to be so varied. Um, my daughter has looked at this year's compared to last year's, and last year's I was a little more consistent in getting me. Consistent's probably the wrong word, but I was a little more prone to having these big batches of different colors. This is just a small section, but it was a lot more blues and greens, um, and kind of in those where I would get in those, I guess you would say, ruts. Um, but I am really enjoying seeing how my reading goes throughout the year, and having that visual. But that's all I've got this time, guys. I hope that your July was a great reading month, and uh, that you are having a great reading year and are smashing those goals. I'll see you guys next time.